Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, viewer, wherever you may happen to be. Not feeling the greatest, having had a bit of a medical procedure done yesterday, so I thought, what can I do to keep myself occupied? Just recently, Alec, over at War Games Hobby, did a video where he counted all his figures. I think it was painted and unpainted. And suggested to others that they might like to do the same to see where their hobby stands. Dom at Boots on the Table, who to all appearances has a vast collection in a good way, decided to just do his Napoleonics to start with, because he felt if he tried to do what Alec had done, he'd still be counting 3 weeks later. Really enjoyed both those videos, and took me back a little bit even to Ralph Astley's videos when he went through his Lead Mountain, having a look at what he had purchased and was yet to paint, and his philosophy behind why he was buying stuff. Again, very enjoyable, all those 3 channels. Alec on War Games Hobby, Dom on Boots on the Table, Ralph Astley channel in his own name. Go and have a look. Very, very good, worthwhile watching. So I've decided to follow Dom's lead, Dom from Boots on the Table. We'll have a look first at my Napoleonic collection, which is what you're looking at in front of you, both painted and unpainted. Total up the figures. Just to see, if for no other reason for my own sake, just how many I've painted, how many I've got to go, etc., etc. Then we might do one on my Ancients, which are 28mm. My Napoleonics are all 15mm. Ancients 28mm, and then I might finish with a quick look at my American Civil War collection, which is the oldest of the collections, and they are 15mm. Okay, so let's have a look. Okay, let's start with what I call the British and their Allied collection. Apologies for the jumpy video. As I've said many times, Cecil B. DeMille, I ain't, and I'm not much chop at this. The first part, British collection. Infantry units are usually done in 32, cavalry units in 12, artillery units usually 2 guns to the battery. 2 figures on a base represents horse artillery, 3 figures medium, and then I haven't got any for the British, but you'll see in the other armies soon, 4 figures equals a heavy gun. To be painted, this little group here is going to be a 32 unit of British Guards, and over here a 32 man unit of just ordinary British line infantry. And over the back here I've got another 6 Guards, horse cavalry. I'm very much confused as to whether paint them as, say, blues, or one stand of 3 is blues and the other 3 is one of the first 2 Guards regiments. Scots Greys, you can never have too many. The usual Highlanders, etc., as you float through there. Hussars and light dragoons there. The figures with only 4 figures per base on them, as you can imagine, they're meant to be either open order, irregular, or skirmish. I'm not particularly sure what I'm going to do with those, whether I shall leave those as based or whether I'm going to take them off and base them what I call close order as per these units here. Part of the problem is I keep can't make up my mind about what rules to use. In, for example, Fog Napoleonic, how you display a light brigade is you take, let's see if I can find something appropriate. There's a light infantry unit here somewhere. Oh, there they are. You, in Fog N, you do something like this. And that's how you show that the unit is a light infantry brigade. I believe rules such as General d'Armée, which I have never played, so forgive me if I'm incorrect there, but I believe in rules like that for every so many sort of unit stands, whatever, you get units of skirmishers, open order, whatever. All right, let's move on. Small little contingent of Portuguese. You can see there I've got 2 bags of 8 figures each to be painted to complete these units. I have got potentially 2 more lots of 32. They're actually British, but at this scale, those of you who are eagle-eyed will notice as I go through my collection that, and what was perhaps fairly common in my time as a young fella, you would often take a French figure and paint it up as a Westphalian, or a British figure and paint it up as a Portuguese. In 15mm, you can get away with that sort of thing. And most of these figures are verging on 30 plus years old. These are actually British light dragoons, of course, but I've painted them up as later Portuguese light dragoons. Moving on, this is the British Allied contingent for the Waterloo campaign. Nassau, Brunswick is obviously Dutch. A bag of 32 Hanoverians, which are actually Prussian landwear with some British officers and a flag thrown in that I'm going to paint up as some Hanoverians. Potentially, I've got 2 more lots of 32 Brunswicker avant-garde. The guys with the, I don't know if you can see that there, the guys with the tall plume, the Lead Battalion, I think they were called, and the Jager, or light infantry, not the Jagers. I think these were the actual Jagers, these guys back here. And this is actually a proper Belgian unit of 32 figures. So I could actually expand that. And then moving on, last but by no means least, the Spanish. Those again of you who are eagle-eyed will notice that quite a few of these Spanish are actually early French and early British, painted up as Spanish, again in 15mm. You can get away with it and not such a problem. I have recently discovered that the Essex figures fit in quite nicely. I would like to add 1 more unit of, well actually 2 units, another unit of Spanish line infantry and another unit of these guys, guerrillas basically. So yeah, just a bit of an overview. So that's just a small portion of the collection. As I say, I call that my British section. And by my calculations, which are possibly and probably wrong, I'm looking at 648 painted infantry, 90 cavalry, 31 artillery, 11 guns, and 14 commanders. And still to go, I've got at a minimum 6 cavalry figures and 112 infantry, with potentially another 64 infantry to add on top of that. So there we go. That's part one. Okay, French and their allies, Italians, Poles, combination of both, Imperial Guard types. I would like to split that group of 12 up, add 6 Empress Dragoons there and 6 Mamelukes there, just to expand that a little. The French are my most completed army. You've seen videos of them before, so forgive me, I'm lazy. I'm not bringing them out of their trays. Mobs of infantry, mobs of cavalry, guns, and yeah, a few more at the front. Let's pop that down here for a sec. Comes in at a total of 688 infantry, 96 cavalry, 35 artillerymen, 12 actual artillery guns, and 10 commanders. Also, just before we proceed any further, look, I'm sure some of you, perhaps particularly the younger ones, are a bit horrified that rank on after rank of figures that all look exactly the same, and what is to be, let's be honest and face it, pretty basic basing. Sign of my age and what I grew up with and what I think is fine. As I say, I didn't actually start this collection till the late 80s, early 90s, but to me, having ranks of troops all exactly the same looks not only perfectly normal, but almost preferable. And as for the standard of the basing, well, yeah, a bit of green flock does me. You want to go overboard and make them a bit more, I don't know, what's the word, lifelike? Which we'll see when we get to my 28mm. That's what I've done. But anyway, that's the French, the most complete of my army, or armies, I should say. And yet even still, I would like to add just a few more figures. All right, let's move on. Okay, on to the Austrians and their southern German allies. What I've tried to do to vary the armies up a little is to mix in various allied units with the various armies. As you've already seen, the British have the Portuguese, the Spanish, and some of those Dutch Belgians and Nassaus. The French have the Italians and Poles. The Austrians have southern German states, Württembergers and Bavarians, a few Baden figures. The Russians, when we get to them, you'll see I've got a Swedish contingent. And for the Prussians, some North German allies in the Saxons and Westphalians. This particular army is unfortunately fairly typical of the rest of the ones I'm going to show you in its incompleteness. Fortunately, mostly the infantry, but they are going to require some refurbishment as well. Just for example, looking at these cavalry straight ahead, you can see here these old soft metal lances. They all need to be cut out and replaced with steel pins. These old type flags, big, thick, heavy flags, again, cut out and replaced with steel pins. What you'll notice is a lot of the infantry being in lots of 16 with the bag behind it to bring it up to 32. The reason for that being is that when I first got into Napoleonics all those many years ago, Napoleon's battles by Avalon Hill was de rigueur, where I was living anyway, and units were usually of 16 figures, 4 figures to a base and 4 bases to a unit. You could have 6 bases to a unit, but we mostly stuck with 4. So hence, as a result, when I decided to physically increase the size of the units, I've got a whole lot of something, but not a whole lot of anything. I've got a lot of these sort of half units waiting for the other 16 figures to be added to. Got myself a little confused here. I'm not quite sure what I'm up to here. I've got 1 unit of Yagas here in open order. There's another bag there of 16. And then there's 2 bags of 16 here. Now, I'm not sure whether I intended to put them together and make them a landwehr unit. But then if I do that, I've only got 2 lots of 4 stands for skirmishing irregular open order types. And for each army, I've tried to do 12 stands of those. Now, that might be because over here, this is the sort of southern German Allies contingent. You can see there Bavarians, early Württembergers and so forth. I've got 2 bags here of 8 figures, Württembergers and Baden figures. Not quite sure whether perhaps they are meant to be the skirmishers to join the Yagas over there. Yeah, don't know. Anyway, I'm confused myself. But again, same story. These are actually the newer minifigs. I don't like the newer minifigs. I prefer the old minifigs. I know, stick in the mud. And I've got a lot of 16 Baden figures over the back there. I think the idea, these figures here at the back are actually converted Brunswickers. I think maybe my idea was to take those Badeners and add them to these Württembergers. Look, who knows? But anyway, unfortunately, that's the state of the Austrians and the Prussians and the Russians we're about to have a look at. Fortunately, most of it is infantry, so it doesn't take that long to paint up. But anyway, so the Austrians we've got completed. We've got 96 cavalry, a total of, sorry, bear with me, 352 infantry. I'll check these figures, but I think they're right. Actually painted, 9 commanders, 24 artillerymen and 8 guns. The bad news is that if I paint up all those little bags, one thing about the smaller scale, 15 mil, it's quite easy to pile up. It mightn't look much, but there's 224 infantry figures in those little bags awaiting my attention. All right, on to the next army after I've double checked my figures. Okay, hang in there, folks. Second last army. This is the Russians and their allies, the Swedes. Not quite sure again with some of this stuff what I'm doing. The Swedes here, you've got 2 units, some skirmishers out the front, 1 bag at the back of 32 infantry. Although I usually make up my commands of 4 units of infantry, one unit of cavalry and a gun. So again, perhaps that's a work in progress. The cavalry, once again, bit of refurbishment required with a few. The old soft metal lances need to be cut out. Often perhaps two with the odd unit. I might need to fiddle with the colours. You start out by making a unit all of one colour and you think, oh, I'll call that a battalion, but then that battalion suddenly becomes a regiment, so you've got to have different colours within the unit that you're painting. Not quite sure. I seem to be a bit short on Russian commanders here, and I think I need to bulk up the guns number-wise. Hopefully some of these missing commanders might turn up in another box or something like that. These figures here, Magister Militant, the height-wise, etc., the actual figures themselves look fine, but take a look at the guns. They are flipping huge. I know they're meant to be a medium gun. Now, I may well have made a mistake, but as far as I know, that's the minifig 12-pounder gun. Well, the size of the thing, huge. So I might have to, I don't know, hunt around and find something to replace that. But in any event, to quote a ray from the cave, a blast from the past, that will mean absolutely nothing to anyone watching this. We used to have a Russian, or a chap of Russian descent, I should say. He used to say, more guns, whenever he was playing Napoleon's battles. Moving on to the infantry. Get down your wee nipper. Again, sort of bags everywhere, trying to bring things up to 32. I think what I'm trying to do here, what sort of these funny little bags here, I think my idea, I'm trying to form a Russian Guard Corps. And I think my idea here is that this is going to be the Russian Guard Heavy Cavalry. This will be the Russian Guard Light Cavalry. These are Guard Cossacks that need to be painted up in the back. Obviously, I need to purchase another 6 cuirassiers to complete that unit. Just here, I think what I'm up to here is that I'm going to take out one of those Pavlov flags and make that just the single unit of Pavlovs. Again, it's a throwback to the Napoleon's battles days when 16 figures formed a unit. So I think that's what I'm going to try and, or what my plan was, take out one of the flags. Yeah, so again, a whole lot of something, but when you actually try and put it together on the battlefield, perhaps a little bit lacking. Anyway, the final count there, 360 infantry figures painted, 96 cavalry. That seems to be fairly consistent. As I mentioned, I need another 6 cuirassiers and 6 Guard Cossacks over the back there to be painted. 7 commanders completed, 24 artillerymen, 8 guns. Somewhat frighteningly, all those bags, 224 infantry. And of course the 12 cavalry, 6 artillerymen and the 2 guns. As I say, it may even be higher than that, another 32, which would make it 256, because I normally do these in groups of 4 infantry. But we shall see. Who knows? All right, hang in there, viewer. One more to go. The Prussians. Well, dear viewer, I don't know about you, but I've just about had the gong. I'm exhausted. And counting all these things. All right, so the Prussians, probably slightly more advanced than the Russians and Austrians. Over here, got a bucket load of Saxons to do. Cavalry in the midst of a refurbishment. As you can see here, they haven't even stuck them on their base. Saxon heavy cavalry behind. Not sure whether they should be replaced with some dragoons or something. No, I don't know. I think I mentioned before Magister Militant figures. I think it's sold by Magister Militant. They're actually chariot miniatures. Generally don't mix too badly with the minifig second edition, but you've got to be careful. See here, in a separate unit, they're actually not too bad. They're not noticeable. Although if you put them next to the minifigs, they tower over them. The horses are quite a good size, but the men are huge. So, yeah, just one of those things. And probably the biggest job with the infantry, that's going to be 2 grenadier or guard units. Maybe I should have more landwehr. Who knows? Anyway, all up painted 344 infantry, 78 cavalry, 24 artillery, 8 guns and 8 commanders. Although one of them, the dude I use as a Westphalian commander, you'll recognise him as just a French line colonel. Painted in a different colour. What you going to do? The butcher's bill on this one, 206 infantry to paint in all those packets, and 6 artillery men and 2 guns. This time, for some reason, the Magister, sorry, I keep saying that, the chariot guns actually aren't a bad match at all. So I've got no idea what's going on with those huge Russian guns we looked at before. All right, so that's the lot. I'll take a break now, load this all on computer, get it ready to put up on YouTube, and then we'll finish by having a look at the totals. Back in a moment. Well, viewer, if you have hung around to this point, you have done very well, better than I. I gave up and went and had a cup of tea. So here's the final tally. Absolutely ironclad correct. No possibility of any mistake. So, all up, infantry, painted, 2,392, cavalry, 456, artillery, 138, actual artillery pieces, 47, and command figures, 38. To be painted, 766 infantry figures, but of course that can always get added to. There's at least another possible 96. Unpainted cavalry 6, but again, referring back to my French, if you remember, I said I might like to expand the guard cavalry. That might go up to 18. 12 artillery and 4 guns. I mean, really is, when you get sucked in by the Napoleonic fervour, are you ever really finished? And yes, of course, looking at that collection, you notice that a lot of figures they painted and glued to bases still hadn't had the base flocking, etc. done yet. And as I mentioned, a few of the cavalry need a refurbishment, in particular to their lances. Now, I'm not going to count these, but yes, there's more. This is my actual bits and pieces box. Flags, odd figures, where you've got 4 figures left over, or, command figures and you have a couple left over. Heaven knows how many are in there. Potentially even worse. These are actual spare figures that I've bagged into lots of 8, 16, 24. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Magister Militum, they're called. Yeah, there you go. Although I thought they were chariot miniature. Anyway, who knows? Oh, well, here they're called chariot miniatures. What you going to do? Same mob, I think. But again, yeah, bags and bags and bags of the little blighters. And then just to prove that I'm totally insane, these are, that's an Ottoman army. Although a few of those are the A-B figures, which are quite large. Spare bags of cavalry. This one over here is mostly infantry, whereas this one's the spare cavalry. Although again, Revolutionary War French, I think. My friend said here, see what you can do with these. So, all right, I'm tired, I'm starting to ramble. So that's the Napoleonic disaster. Having that many figures, even infantry, left to paint may sound like requiring a Herculean effort. Well, actually, you're right. But at 32 figures a week, which is not hard for me to churn out, my 15mm figures are fairly basic. Black undercoat, straight in with the main colours, no wash, no highlighting, but I still think they look pretty good. So at 32 infantry figures a week, yeah, I should be able to churn through that if I knuckle down. There's the problem, knuckling down. All right, viewer, thanks for that. Next up, we shall have a look at my Ancients collection. Until then, bye for now.